All right. Welcome to all the listeners out there. My name's Dr. Scott Ferry, and you're listening to another episode of Oak Performance Radio. Hope you guys get something out of the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Oak Performance Radio. I'm your host, Adam Lane. If you're new to the show, our goal here is to create some content, some fantastic content for athletes, parents, and coaches. We tell stories, have laughs, and go into everything that is the end game of athletic performance, helping athletes achieve their optimal performance and be the best they can possibly be. Enjoy the show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Oak Performance Radio. I'm your host, Adam Lane. With me today, Dr. Scott Ferry, OrthoIllinois.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks for making the time. You are a busy guy, operating on people, putting people back together.
Yeah, counseling too. It's not just operating on people. Lots of other stuff too.
I guess that is a big part of it. The whole counseling piece, making people feel good about what's going on and the steps that leading into it, going out of it.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, surgery is part of what we do, but a lot of it is conservative stuff. A lot of it's counseling, education. It's a big piece.
Is that part of being a doctor? Is that, sorry, of course, part of like your education? Like, did they teach you how to do this, or you had to learn on the job?
A little of both. I mean, they definitely. I think medical school education has definitely like changed, where it's not as like kind of hard science. I mean, you got to know the hard science too, but they definitely teach like the soft stuff too, and how to talk to people to try and get them to open up and try to get them to, share things with you that maybe they wouldn't necessarily share with other people. And ideally it's all things to kind of help put the picture together and try and figure out, the best way to guide them forward. So we get some of that. A lot of it is observation. I mean, you work with a lot of different people in your training, and you kind of pick up like, hey, this person's really good with their patients.
Yeah.
And, those kind of questions or techniques seem really effective. And, you get the opposite too. You're like, wow, like this person's probably shouldn't even be a doctor. Like they're terrible at talking to people.
Yeah.
And, so I think some of it's training, but a lot of it is kind of throughout your education, seeing what works and, what fits your personality.
Yeah. There we go. Well, here, Doc, before we get too far, for the tens of people that listen to the show that might not know who you are and why you're
dozens.
There might be dozens. So, somewhere between 24 and 36, maybe right in there. Tell these people who you are and why you're such a big deal.
Not a big deal, but so I'm a pediatric orthopedic surgeon. I'm a Rockford kid. Grew up here. I went to college in Illinois, went to med school at Illinois, met my wife there.
Auburn kid?
Auburn kid.
Auburn kid. Okay, yeah. There we go. Go Knights.
94.
A couple years ago.
And I met my wife in medical school, and they have this really goofy system. If you are like engaged or married to somebody, you can like do your residency training in the same place, but you have to like link your applications together. So instead of like you just trying to have to fit a place, you have to try and fit two places together. And so kind of a stressful time.
Yeah.
It worked out well. We ended up in Chapel Hill in North Carolina.
Okay.
Started residency like, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks after we got married.
Okay. And she was also orthopedic?
She's just family medicine.
Okay.
So we were there for 6 years. And then I did an extra year kind of in Chicago, just doing kids for orthopedic stuff. And then I've been here practicing in Rockford ever since.
Okay.
So,
which was how long? When did you come back to Rockford?
2009. So like 15 years.
Okay. Gotcha. A little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good. It's a good town.
It's good. It is. Yeah.
We like it.
And where's your wife from?
She's from West Central Illinois.
Okay.
So Carthage, it's near like Western Illinois.
Okay.
But,
gotcha.
She's got a sister here in town, and my folks are still in town. Okay. So
she's doing okay up here in the north. Okay.
Yeah. She's a farm girl. She can handle it.
Oh, she's fine. There we go. Doctor, I'm curious. So not that I want my athletes to ever have to go and meet you, but sport is hard. All sports are hard. You play 1,000 miles an hour. you do your best. We do our best and to try to bomb proof them and make sure that, but weird things happen sometimes in your control, not in your control. You specialize in pediatrics, in kids. I remember when we spoke last time, a few weeks back, you said, I want to say it was in a week. Correct me if I'm wrong here. You did ACL repair on a 7-year-old and 2 9-year-olds in 1 week. Was that right? Or am I blowing that out of proportion?
Not 1 week.
Oh, not 1 week. Okay.
No, but maybe in 1 year.
Sorry. So, jeez, totally blowing things up.
So they're those super young kids. I mean, they happen. They're not
okay.
They're not.
Those are very rare.
They're less frequent than your typical 16-year-old basketball player kind of kid. But
gotcha.
But definitely. Those younger kids are out there, and some of them are kind of freak accidents, but most of them are sports related.
Yeah. Okay. What so in the last 15 years, what has changed in your job when it comes to everything or anything?
I think, if you look at the job, not necessarily like the individual patients, the job in this area, I think one trend that I would not have predicted when I got here is really the kind of area in hospital pediatric services. There's a real trend, regionally and nationally that, hospitals are really concentrating pediatric services. So, historically, a hospital had a adult ward and a surgical ward and an OB ward and a peds ward. And, if your kid had asthma, you went to the hospital, and if you need to get admitted, you get admitted. That doesn't happen anymore. There are, so in town, we used to have a pediatric intensive care unit and some really high level services. And like over time that's changed. So, most of the stuff we do, a lot of the stuff we do is, athletes, healthy kids, isolated injuries, but not all of it. I mean, we have, people that are bad car accidents, severe infections. And those are kids that used to be a lot easier to take care of here. And it's much more difficult than it used to be. And I would not have predicted that. And I would not have said, oh, hey, I bet we won't have a pediatric ICU where if we have somebody that has a car accident, they automatically have to get shipped out of town.
Yeah.
Like that part's changed. So that's probably the biggest practice change is kind of like, for what I do and for me, the stuff we see in the patients, right now, since it's football season, it feels like there's more of them. I feel like the number of patients multiplies exponentially during football September and October. And then we get a little breather, and then we get through December, and then January is okay again. But so it does seem like the amount of patients we're seeing over time has increased. But if you would have asked me, like when I started 15 years ago, like, how many ACL kids I'd see a year, I would have guessed, 10 to 20 a year, not, 40 to 60.
Is that where you're at? 40 to 60?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're just, I don't know. I wasn't super athletic. I played basketball for a couple of years and I was a golfer in high school. I don't know anybody in high school that tore their ACL. And I'll talk to a 15-year-old kid now and they'll be like, have any of your friends ever done this? They're like, oh yeah, I got a kid on my soccer team and then this other kid on my basketball team that he had surgery last year. And it's just, it's, I don't want to say it's routine, but it seems more commonplace than it did before.
Kelly Miller, it's the only one girl, she played basketball at NIU and she was a stud. Holy cow. But yeah, that's the only one I remember from high school. Yeah. In the 90s, nobody on my football team, nobody in basketball.
No.
That's crazy to think about.
It is. And I mean, I guess that's a little bit longer period for me, high school to now, but it does seem like that trend clinically is here. And I think if you look at national numbers, it's definitely, that bears fruit.
Yeah. Anything in your professional opinion, any reason why?
Oh, I think there's a lot of reasons. Okay. I think we definitely see way more single sport specialization. Like I said, when I was in high school, people played, did swimming, and then you did basketball, and then you played baseball, and like for a lot of kids, by the time they're in high school now, they've been a single sport athlete for 3 to 4 years. They're like, after middle school, there aren't a ton of kids that are doing that. So, when you have a single activity where you're using those same muscle groups and year round, I think that's probably not good. The pure volume of competition has exploded. I mean, travel stuff, weekend tournaments, I mean, kids playing, 6 baseball games in 2 days. And, so I think single sport, the amount of it. And I mean, I think if you went back and watched like a video of like a high school basketball game, like 30, 40 years ago, and you looked at it now, like it's not the same game.
It's not the same game.
I mean, the physical condition of student athletes now. I mean, you guys are making these super strong, I mean, and they are bigger and they hit harder and they, I think the level of competition is higher than it was in the past. So, and I think with a higher level of competition, I think inherently has a higher risk of injury.
Yeah.
So.
Everything's going faster. Yeah. Anything, this might be just a dumb question. Anything under the hood? When you open up an ACL today versus an ACL 10 years ago, do you notice a difference? Is there, I don't know. Is there a difference in bone density of anything? Is there muscle development that's different in any way, shape, or form? Or am I reaching here?
I don't know. I mean, probably nothing. I mean, I wouldn't say like the, like the types of tears that we're seeing, whether you tear the ligament or you rip a piece of bone off where the ligament attached. I wouldn't say like that's different. The meniscus injuries that come with these don't necessarily feel different or seem different. So I don't think the injury itself is necessarily different. It seems more common.
Yeah. Gotcha. Interesting. What else do you do? I know we keep talking ACLs.
Yeah.
What else do you see?
Well, one of the things actually, I mean, a lot of people that go through residency kind of hate residency. I mean, the hours were bad and, it was definitely like a stressful time, but
sleep's overrated.
But I did enjoy what I was doing. I liked the educational part of it. I liked, working with other attendings. I liked teaching younger residents. And there weren't too many things in training that I didn't like. This concept of general orthopedics is kind of on the downslope. If you were, in Rockford 50 years ago and you went to the hospital and you broke your hip, like there was probably a general orthopedist on call that took care of you and did a really good job. And, they did, hip fractures and knee replacements and carpal tunnel surgery and everything. And over time, the amount of people that have kind of gone through orthopedic training and decided to like subspecialize into an area has really increased. Okay. Where I don't know what it is, but I think it's over 80% of residents now do an extra fellowship year or two to kind of like subspecialize. And that could be spine or hand or shoulder and elbow or tumors or, joint replacements or those things like that. But I always I kind of liked everything. Yeah. So pediatrics is really like the last area in orthopedics where it's kind of like okay to be a general orthopedic. Yeah. Not okay, but like that's still like people do that. And I think that's part of what drew me to it. Yeah. I mean, I like working with kids, and once you have kids, parents aren't really that difficult to figure out. Like if you don't have any kids, a lot of people are really intimidated by taking care of kids because they're like, this
yeah.
But once you have kids and you understand like what people worry about and, what's in the back of their mind, it's really, I don't think that part of it is that difficult.
Yeah.
But I always liked, being able to kind of do everything. So I don't personally do any spine surgery. Okay. That's a little bit more on the technical side. It's a little bit more on the malpractice side to kind of have to deal with, and it didn't really seem like it was worth it. So, but other than that, and from the orthopedic world,
everything.
Yeah. Now there's the practice is awesome because there's, I have some great people we work with, and there's some stuff that, I either don't think I'm that good at or I really don't like. Mm-hmm. So I don't do everything. Yeah. I mean, if, somebody dislocates their shoulder and needs that repaired, like, I hate that surgery. I don't want to do it. And we have guys that are good at it and love doing it. So that goes over there. So, but I'll see people for, other than, most of the spine stuff, I'll see people for just about everything kind of orthopedic related.
What's very common with kids?
Wrist fractures, ankle fractures, elbow fractures, broken fingers. And then, the one thing I see a ton of that I didn't necessarily see as much in my training. There's two things that I don't know if there's something in the water around here or not. One of them is patellar instability. We see tons of kids with kneecap instability. And then I practice here, and then we have an office out in like the kind of Algonquin, Elgin region as well. There's a pretty big baseball presence out there. We see a lot of kind of younger, in high school kids with like throwing type injuries. Okay. So a little more like overhead baseball throwing activity stuff. So
shoulder, elbow, the whole shebang.
Mostly. Yeah. So, and those kids feel like they're getting younger too.
Yeah.
Like the elbow ligament stuff, people used to talk about, college and professional players getting now. And, I'm seeing 12 and 13-year-old kids with UCL tears.
Yeah. And, getting Tommy Johns. And
that's, I would say that injury to me seems to have a very similar, kind of progression over time as like ACL injuries that we're seeing younger kids and a lot more of them.
No. Oh. What, if you were to, again, for the dozens of people that listen to the show, if you're talking to, because I don't see what you see, I'm very curious, just the whole surgery side of things and I think we said this before we hit record. Like, I don't want our kids to ever see you like that, but again, weird, goofy things happen. Who the heck knows? If you were to talk to coaches, if you were to say something, if a coach is listening right now, whether it be a strength coach or sport coach, do you have any words of wisdom that you would want to, hey, in 2024, make sure this crosses your mind?
Oh man, you should have prepped me.
I should.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like sometimes from the sport world, like the coaching world, the kids I'm seeing, I feel like a lot of them are taught that like more is always better. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'll get these kids that will, they'll do a club volleyball season from whatever, October to June, and the season will get over and they won't start their school stuff until August. And they'll be at, University of whatever doing 3 weeks of volleyball camp, to work on their skills. And like, to me, like that's insanity. like these kids, they're competing at such a high level. Like your body does need time to recover. In some of these, 5 practices a week, games all weekend, some of the cross country kids I see, they're literally running 7 days a week, I don't think that's the best way to maximize your performance. Yeah. And I think it's a huge way to increase your risk of getting hurt. Yeah. So if you've got that season and you've got 3 weeks or 4 weeks off before school starts, like don't play volleyball.
Yeah.
Like, ride a bike, go swimming if you got to be active. But, so I feel like sometimes there's this message, like you should always be doing, more. If you can do more practice, more drills, more camps, it'll make you a better player. And I think there's a real cost for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I don't know.
More is better and better is more. And that's not always the case.
You're doing strength training, like, like these kids aren't here trying to max out every night. Right?
Yeah. No,
That's not the best way to,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like that's a little bit of a, some of these sports, it's almost like a badge of honor. It's like, yeah, I do gymnastics. We're 22 hours a week in the gym. I'm just like, when do you take a break? They're like, we don't. We just go year round. And I'm like, I don't know if that doesn't feel like the right approach.
Yeah. Well, and then when you level up, my niece, she's 10, 11, just leveled up from whatever to whatever. And she goes from 9 hours in the gym in the week to now 12 hours in the gym in the week. And then when she levels up to the next, then it's 50. It just keeps going. And it's, a lot of it is really good, but at some point,
it's a demanding sport. It's technically difficult. I mean, that's probably what you have to do to compete at that level. But like I said, when you do, I mean, if you eliminated, soccer, football, and like gymnastics and tumbling, I mean, like 30% of what I do would go with. I mean, it's a huge percentage of the stuff that we take care of.
Wow.
I mean, you're always going to have your trampolines and your monkey bars and, that kind of stuff. Yeah. But I mean, there's a couple specific sports that, I think higher injury rate.
Yeah. So when I used to coach track and field, high school level, I had some very talented athletes. And to your point, I would track miles and stuff like that, have practice plans written up, very, very specific. I had a very specific vision for what we wanted these kids to do. And I had a kid with a labrum tear in the hip. And we talked, oh, bad luck, son of a gun. Oh, poor Aspen. Sorry, kiddo. Hey, we'll get him next year. A couple months later, same thing happened to another athlete. And it's funny, in talking to other coaches, they give me the same thing. Oh, bummer, she got hurt. That's it. And it was after the second one I looked in the mirror going, maybe there's something wrong with me here because this is bad. But I wasn't doing anything different than any of the other coaches. Like if your kids are running, your distance track kids are running 20 miles a week or 25 miles a week, 30 is better. If they can run 30, 35 is better. Track and field kids, that I was friends with in college, at Iowa State, they were running 80, 90 miles a week. And just going out for 13-mile runs, 14-mile runs on a Sunday in which to compete in the 3K and just did it. And to your point, and it was funny when we fell into the strength conditioning thing, I started integrating it more into practice, and we would lift during practice, which left less time for running. And I'm like, oh my God, our mileage went down. I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, our kids are going to get slower. Like I know the strength thing's important, but man, and they were faster and they felt better, and they're doing it on 25 miles a week versus 35 miles a week. Yeah. And now I know running's different than a lot of sports, but man, it was insanely eye-opening for me. And I think if coaches can find that balance, which is hard to find, but yeah, I think you're doing something.
No, I agree. And the other thing I would say too is, just watching like, family members and stuff. I mean, we're all like so inherently different, like what our bodies can do and tolerate.
Yeah.
I have kids in my family that will like go play basketball for an hour and a half, and they'll go to a 3-hour soccer practice, and they just go, and they do it, and they're fine. And you get kids that break down very easily. So I think as you get to those higher levels, like you get to like a collegiate basketball player or a collegiate runner, you're naturally selecting those people that I think are, inherently able to do more.
You make it that far.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, I don't know, I probably wouldn't conceptually look at, sport training in a collegiate runner the same way I would as like a high school or middle school runner. Yeah. Like I think you probably have to be more self-conscious of those younger kids who are, physically still developing, but you probably have a much, wider spectrum of, capability than as you get into that much more elite kind of level.
Yeah. So now follow-up question, similar to the previous one. Oh boy. If you're as a parent, 4 kids, ones that have played club sport before, one currently playing club sport,
Oh, you're talking about me.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
What would you say? Just again, no, coming from what you see on a daily basis. You had a couple ACLs. You did today. What would you? I have a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old. They play sports, do things. We just finished flag football. We're going into wrestling. What any words of wisdom that you think not just because of what you do every day, that you'd want to bestow again to the dozens of people that listen to the show?
I don't know. That's a tough one. I mean, I think, I don't know. My mother would say everything in moderation.
Yeah.
It's like, you can eat whatever you want. You just gotta do it in moderation.
Yeah.
I'm like, she was a dietitian. So, she never said like, you can't eat ice cream or don't put that butter on that. Just do it reasonably, and, I think as parents, I think we probably all have a understanding of what's reasonable and maybe what's not reasonable. Sometimes like keeping that in front of you, I think is where we get sideways. Having your kid, do travel baseball and play, 8 games in 2 days and throw 200 pitches is not reasonable. So, I mean, I think, from a parent, what I've tried to do with our kids is we've tried to make sports something that they enjoy. I think our daughter's the greatest example of that, is that she did a lot of different sports that we forced her to do, because we're like, you got to do, you're middle school, you got to do something, you got to be active. So
what would you force her to do?
Oh, I mean, basketball, swimming, cross country. I mean, not cross country. And then
she golf?
She golfed.
Okay.
Yeah.
You didn't force her to do that?
No, I think she did it for me though, not for her. She stopped her last year just because it was too much. But and then she found volleyball and clearly like fell in love with volleyball. We're now like a volleyball fan. Like I love watching volleyball with another kid that plays volleyball. But like, when she did it, we decided to let her kind of do as much as she wanted to with it. But there was always like in the lens of like, you're like a good volleyball player, but like, this isn't your whole life. Like you're not going to be a professional volleyball player. So we're going to do it to like be active and learn how to work in a team and, care about your physical fitness and, interact with adults and professionals and competitive and learn how to lose and like all those things that I think sports are great for. Yeah. But not to make it a lifestyle. I mean, I can't tell you like how many times I hear like the 9-year-old kid who's like going to be the next, Nolan Ryan. I'm like, dude, he's 9 years old. Like that should not be what this 9-year-old kid is aspiring to be. Yeah. He should do it because it's fun and you learn how to work with other people. And I think as adults, we lose sight of that maybe too much. So.
I saw something where, gosh, somebody was speaking on something, but I think they use the word elite. It's like, there are no elite 9-year-olds. They're 9. They play that sport. That's great, but they are not elite, and we need to pump the brakes a little bit.
The problem is there's probably some like website, so that's tracking 9-year-old hockey players that maybe they really are, technically elite. It's just. It's hard. I mean, obviously, I'm not a professional athlete, and maybe I would have a totally different opinion if, my life revolved around that. But I feel like the amount of people that are able to professionally do sports is pretty small. Yeah. And if you compare that to all the kids in sports, obviously, that's not a reality for most of them. So it shouldn't be the focus of youth sports. Shouldn't be to be like this, uber elite, it should be, like I said, fun, exercise, team player, learning how to lose, learning how to deal with adversity, those kind of things.
Yeah. All the great things of sport.
I mean, they're maybe not great when you're doing them, but you can definitely like look back as an adult and be like, losing is terrible, but got through it.
Got through it.
So
I find it interesting. gosh, where were you going with it? Oh, I find just seeing so many different kids that we do, that there are some kids really like you described that just can just go, and they will go from this practice to that game and they love it. They eat it up. My kids wrestle with the Honey Eagle Wrestling Club, and the Cassiope family is fantastic. Tony Cassiope went to Iowa. He was their heavyweight for the last 4 years. And he's got younger brothers who are twins who are sophomores this year, and all they do is wrestle. And you're like, these kids are going to get burned out. They don't. They just go. They love to wrestle. You see them playing some pickup basketball, and you're like, oh my God, they've never touched a ball in their life. Like, you know, it's that ugly, but they love it so much. You know, the older sisters wrestle. Rose is actually wrestling at Iowa right now, but it's just what they do. And then you see other kids where if they were to do that, they'd get burnt out in a second, you know, and they need those different outlets of, hey, now I'm going to swim. Hey, now I'm going to do cross country. Hey, now I'm doing golf. And just, which I'm pretty sure is how both my kids are wired up right now. Cause they, towards the end of the seasons, you can see them just getting not annoyed with the sport, but yeah, do I have practice today? You know,
yeah,
and not in a happy way, but
soft side. Yeah,
exactly. Like, oh, do I just? But I find it interesting that, you know, just how different kids are wired up in different ways. Not that this has anything to do with surgery.
No, I think that right. I mean, there's clearly something genetic in that family. That, I mean, that's gosh. Not just, I don't feel like that's all coincidence that those kids are all, you know, that good.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously part of it is dedication and training, but, you know, like some extent, like, you know, they can do it.
Yeah.
You know, not everybody can just do that.
Yeah. And if you love it in some way, shape or form, they love it. And I think that's a lot of times the difference that I see between the kids that either are driven, you know, maybe go on and play college, you know, or they quit early or whatever it is. They just, you know, they don't love it for some reason. And I don't know, 1,000 different reasons for why a kid might not love a sport, but no. Doc, what do we miss? What do you wish I would have asked you that I didn't?
You should, I got a good prep explain for this.
How many podcasts have you done?
Like 2, maybe.
Oh, okay. There we go.
This might be the second.
Yes. Okay.
Trying to think of stuff we talked about. I mean, I wanted to, you know, talk about, I think, reasons for, you know, increased injuries in younger kids. You know, I guess what I thought my purpose of sports was at. You know, I talked a little bit about who I am. I mean, I would tell you that I think just as a provider, like, I feel like the philosophy of medicine, the way we interact with patients has changed a little bit too.
Okay.
You know, I think if you think of, like, you know, TV shows from 60 years ago, like, you kind of like, you know, there's like this probably man that walks into this room in a white coat and, you know, very sterile looking and, you know, doesn't sit down and talks to somebody and says, here's your prescription, see me in 3 months, you know, and I think one of the reasons I like my job is that that's not what we really, it's not what I do. And I don't think that's the way most medicine is now.
Okay.
It's for us, it's not like, you know, you've got a broken finger, here's a cast and you can't do any sports for 6 weeks. It's like, here's your injury. Here's how we would typically manage this, but, you know, you do these activities and here's the things I worry about and, you know, tell me what you're worried about. And then, you know, there's like this shared decision-making process. And it's a little tricky with kids because, like, a lot of times the kids are like, I just, you know, want to go to recess, and I'm like, well, you can't go to recess. And you know, but the parents are like, well, I understand, you know, but, you know, that's the part I do like is that you get this opportunity to kind of like interact with people, and usually not at the greatest part in their lives. I mean, most of the people we're seeing are either have something congenital or more commonly that they got hurt and they're not able to work or, you know, do the stuff they want to do. So I do enjoy that kind of like shared decision-making process and kind of like figure out like what's, you know, the best path to kind of get you better. I mean, I have some kids that, you know, break their wrist during football and they're out the whole season. And I get some kids that, you know, they're in a cast and they're playing 2 weeks later. You know, I mean, it depends on the injury, but it depends on the kid and the family. So I don't know. I think that's everybody out there interested in medicine, it's not sterile and just, we want everybody. And it's, I don't know, it's a great way to kind of help people and do better things for the world. And,
do you fight much I see good and bad with this, but now everything's on YouTube. So I can Google whatever it is. Do you find yourself fighting against somebody's opinion on YouTube about this injury, that injury, or does that help people get more educated on what's going on?
Yeah. So we refer to that as Dr. Google.
Okay.
They're like, well, I was thinking, I'm like, did Dr. Google tell you that? And they're like, maybe. I would tell you, I think for the most part, it's actually good.
Okay.
If you are a baseball kid and you rip the epicondyle off the inside of your elbow and in your throwing arm, and you read about that injury before you come in, and you kind of understand what's going on, I think it's a much easier and more productive conversation to have with the family and say, well, here's what we got to worry about, other than, somebody who's completely uneducated.
Yeah.
So for the most part, the stuff that people are looking at online has some basis in reality. And usually I think if the patients are more educated, the conversation's more productive. There's a very finite amount of stuff that we can expect anybody to remember from one office visit. People have done studies on that. Like, what did the doctor tell you? And 5 minutes later, they walk out of the room and they're like, people forgot like 80% of the stuff they told them. So the more education people have coming in, I think the more they get out of the visit. But the flip side's out there too. The new baby with a club foot, and like, this is how we treat club feet. We use this technique that they kind of perfected at the University of Iowa, where we do these serial casts every week, and then we do a little surgery to lengthen the heel cord, and then you wear these braces, and and then there's somebody that's like, well, I talked to this mom on Facebook and she said that she did that, and fill in the blank, right? And it's like, well, I can try and educate you with the best kind of like peer-reviewed information that I have. But there's always a Facebook lady, Uncle Jerry, there's always, we don't, we kind of live in our world of our own experiences. And, the internet has definitely like put some of those stories out there. And sometimes that's a challenge where you're spending, 80% of your time trying to like uneducate somebody about their miseducation, instead of like trying to like educate them and like, help like kind of move the process forward. So, mostly good, but sometimes not great.
My wife will stress herself out with Dr. Google with, I have this weird back problem, and go down rabbit holes. Adam, I think I have a tumor. You probably do, hon. Yep, that's probably what it is. It's not your psoas. It's not, not a disc thing,
those, and I guess, for us, that's sometimes the struggle for us too, is that, there's a couple, my kids would tell me I love like euphemisms. Like I like torture my kids. Like when we get together with my brother-in-laws, like there's this website that has like 5,000 euphemisms, and I'll see how many of them I can use in a day. Two in the hand. So, there's one euphemism in medicine that, common things happen commonly. And the other one is that when you hear hooves, you should think of horses, not zebras, so it's
fantastic.
So it's much more likely that it's a common thing or a common problem, but not some weird tumor. But, that's part of the hard part of our job, is that the weird things are out there. We're like,
and they make TV shows of these weird things.
They make lots of TV shows where that's all they do. But, it's always in the back of your mind. We certainly don't want to like you don't want to overtreat people and kind of put them through all this stuff. But there's got to be something on your radar when you're talking to people that like, something's maybe not right here. And every year I'll have 1 or 2 kids with some kind of malignancy that show up in my office, whether it's a bone sarcoma or leukemia or, so that stuff's not common, but it's out there. And, we're people and make decisions and we're fallible, but I mean, it's hard to be like, how far do we go here? Yeah. And that's just, part of the practice of medicine is kind of, when your radar goes off, sometimes you got to be like, I think something's wrong here, so it's, I love it. It's a challenging job at times, but it's very rewarding.
Yeah. How stressful? A scale of 1 to 10.
It's funny. My wife asks my son that like 3 times a week. What is stressing you in college? I think I think on a week, I go between 2 and 10. Okay. Sometimes it's the practice of medicine. Sometimes it's difficult cases. Sometimes it's complications with patients or surgeries. Sometimes it's administrative stuff. Sometimes it's paperwork. Sometimes it's trying to feel like I'm doing a good job at my, job, but also at my house. Not
an easy job either.
Neglecting, my other responsibilities in life, and having a spouse in medicine has been. She's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I would think that's helpful.
Is a little probably more understanding than someone who wasn't in medicine. Yeah. And kind of understands what residency's like. Yeah, so it fluctuates, but it. I wouldn't want to do anything else.
Yeah. Very good.
Oh.
Very good. Is she still practicing?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Oh, then you guys are on the same page.
Yeah. Yeah, she's doing the other kids' things. Okay. Tonight, so we're dividing and conquering.
Yes. You see, I don't know how you had so many kids. That whole zone defense thing. I mean, of course, you got 2 out of the house right now.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of funny though. It was like, we had 2. They were about 2 years apart, boy and a girl. And she's like, I think I want 1 more kid. No. I can do 1 more kid.
1 more kid.
Sure, and then we had the twins. So I've warned several people of our story like over the years, and a couple of them it's like happened to them. Yeah, they're like, yeah, we went for 3, and I'm like, yeah, I told you.
2 to 4 is a jump right there.
Yeah, but it's awesome now. I wouldn't trade it for.
You have good kids too. They're easy.
No, you don't know them.
Well, Ashley's pretty chill. Ashley's got it together. I'm curious to see what, excited to see what she does in life. I'd vote for her for president, to be honest with you. If she decided to run today, I would vote her in the second. So,
all right. I don't want her to do that job.
Oh no, it'd be a terrible job. I trust her to do it well.
I would never want anybody that I know to be president. I don't think that's a good job.
No, I don't want this job. There you go. Well, Dr. Ferry, I appreciate your time. Yeah. Thank you so much. Listeners, you have issues, OrthoIllinois. Not that we're trying to sell you.
Happy to try and help.
There we go. Awesome. Listeners, thanks for listening. We'll check you on the next one. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for listening to another episode of Oak Performance Radio. Don't forget to check us out on the social at Oak Performance and online at www.oakstrength.com/Oak Performance. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.